Hey there! Today we're going to talk about this ink. I know it's a small bottle, I can't help it. Herbin Orange Indien. I'm going to just say Indian Orange because it's difficult to pronounce. I got this in a set of, I think, 14 of these small bottles of Herbin ink, which is actually a very nice way to get familiar with the brand of inks. I picked this one for today because yesterday was the official start of autumn 2012 in our hemisphere, and I think that this makes a fairly autumnal orange ink. I could have picked other ones. Someone, I think, on FB Geeks or YouTube anyway, suggested Diamine Pumpkin. Of course, that would have been great. The problem is I don't have that ink, and I don't mind buying it, but it's it wouldn't be delivered here in one day, right? It's a Sunday today, so we'll have to do with this. As you can see, there isn't a whole lot left, but enough to do an Inkcyclopedia entry. A quick rundown of the ink. I think this is an interesting orange. It's not very bright. I think it sort of fits with autumn. I guess you could say this is the color of some leaves in autumn. And I think it's a nice ink. As with all the Herbin inks I have tried, this one is very well behaved. It's a simple ink, and I kind of like it. So I hope this is going to be useful, and sit back and enjoy. See you later. Okay, so here we go with Herbin Orange Indien. Indian Orange. Start with a bit of fine writing. So here we have a fairly light orange. I'll just adjust the lighting a little bit here, sorry. Medium. I think this is somewhat pumpkin-like in color, except that maybe it's a bit of a pumpkin on Xanax or something, because it's somewhat restrained, but I do think it's a nice color. It's not an extremely bright orange. It does have some nice shading. For some reason, this is not an ink I use a whole lot, which is apparent from the little bottle, right? I mean, I got such a small bottle and I still got quite a bit in there. Every now and then I use it, but usually when I go for an orange, I go for Noodler's Dragon's Napalm, which is a very bright orange, metallic. So what we have here is an ink that I think performs well, that shades fairly nicely. I wouldn't call it extreme shading, but there definitely is some shading going on there. And it's orange. It's definitely orange. Let's move up a little bit and do some passes 1, 2, 3. So there we go. I'll come back to those later. I think this gives a very good impression of the color. It's I think henna is a good way to describe the type of orange used here. Okay, bit of flex writing. Railroading, going too fast. That's better. Okay, so that should give us some idea of the shading, I think, of the ink. Medium. Try to apply some pressure here. This is not the most flexible nib in town. Broad. Very wet nib this. This is the Lamy Safari. I turned this into Indian. It should have been Indien. So I think we are definitely getting a taste for the shading here, and I also think... Is that dry or not? Oh, it's dry. It looks dry. Let's go for a second and... well, another second pass. I'll return for the third pass in a minute. First, let's do some more italic writing. Fairly nice. Okay. Well, then I should do some water tests, waterproofness. The O is a fairly boring letter when it comes to calligraphy, I'm afraid. So I'll try to do a sort of Old English thing, not a capital this time. What can we do? Let me see. Retouching a little bit. There we go. Okay, so at least we have an O of some kind. Let's leave that to dry a little bit. And then we need some writing in medium and see how the ink responds to water. Orange Autumn. Have to wait for that to dry, which is going to take a while. Let's go to the passes. No, a little too wet. But that's fine. I'll just start working on the scorecard. Cleaning of this ink. is good. I've never had any problem. Actually, I'm thinking right now, I cannot think of a single Herbin ink which gave me serious trouble in cleaning it. So that's a good thing. Bleed through. They use natural products, right? Herbin inks are colored with natural dyes, no real chemicals. Bleed through we'll have to see later. Color, well, looks orange to me. Shading. Well, it'll depend a little bit on the pen you use. As you can see here with the real flex nib, you will get some shading. But in a regular nib like this medium, well, there is shading. It's present. Once you've used Apache Sunset, you can tend to get a little spoiled, I think. But it's well, okay. It's there. I'll write down good. Then we have flow, which is very good. I haven't had any. I had a little bit of railroading with the flex writing, but I mean, that's what happens with flex if you go too fast. So I'd say flow is very good. Again, with Herbin inks, I've never had one that had no flow, was too dry, so that's good. Feathering. On this paper it seems good, but let's check out some other paper in a minute. Drying time. I'd say that is okay, but I've got the feeling that it's a somewhat wettish ink. Waterproofness. I don't know yet. We'll have to check that, don't we? First, that's dry enough. Let's do a third pass there. So here you see how this ink goes from a fairly light orange to a very dark, I would almost say chestnut brownish color. It's a fascinating ink. As I said, I don't use it that much, but it does hold a certain appeal. Okay, Orange Autumn. I'm applying water here. Quite a copious amount. And I don't know, but the writing seems to suffer from that. Take a bit of blotting paper. I'm going to cheat here, because this is going to take a long time to dry. Oh look, that dried quickly. I love the way this turns out, this sort of cloud of orange. I think that looks pretty cool. But when it comes to waterproofness, I think we can already conclude, if you look at this, that your writing will suffer severely when this comes to contact with water. It's still legible, but let's face it, it's almost gone. I'll just grab a tissue, get rid of some of that excess water. Henna, anyone? Yeah, so that's, I would say waterproofness is, well, you can still read it, but I would still say it's poor. It's not an ink that will withstand water very well. Okay, we have to look at feathering. This week I'll try not to tear the paper in half. There we go. Bleed through. I see none on this paper except for the bit where I did 3 passes with a 6mm nib, so that's a good thing. Let me just grab some cheaper paper, and then we'll have a look at how this ink works out there. So we'll start with a bit of fine writing. Autumn has started. Medium. Broad. I seem to be coming down with a cold. I don't know. Autumn has started. Italic. So, where's my magnifying glass? You're seeing a whole lot of feathering, because I don't, not even with the broad nib. You see a little bit there at the cross of the T, but apart from that I think the ink seems to be pretty well behaved. Now of course one of the joys of doing this is pushing an ink to the limits. Not the best G I ever made, but you'll get the idea. What's another good letter? Oh wait, now I'm mixing. What is this? Now we're mixing all kinds of scripts. What's going on here? We've got poor foundational, then we've got some type of Gothic, we've got uncials. Well, let's end with foundational again then. Geek. But the funny thing is, even though this is a lot of ink, I really don't see a whole lot of feathering. I'm ruining the paper, but I don't see a whole lot of feathering, which is a good thing. Drastic times require drastic measures. And drastic stuff on your fingers. Bloody hell. When I tell you to feather, my friend, you will reply with how much. You will not dare not to feather. This is a lot of ink, but no feathering. Apart from the areas like these where there's quite a bit of ink. But I mean, seriously, what more can I do? I don't see a whole lot of feathering. I think that's pretty impressive, actually. Does this run? Yeah, that's going to run, isn't it? Interesting. Bleed through, quite severe, but let's face it, I mean, that's not normal. With the regular writing, you see it a little bit, there's some bleed through. That's with the broad nib. I think that's all pretty impressive. So, what do I do with this? I just put it down, and I'll grab my sheet of paper again. Bleed through, good. It's only with really broad nibs and very cheap paper that actually bleeds through, or if you pour the contents of half a bottle of ink over yourself or over the paper. Feathering, I would say that's very good. I mean, you saw how hard I pushed it. I think it was only apparent with a 6mm nib on copy of paper, so I think that's very impressive. So, I would say, there you have it. Herbin Orange Indien, Inkcyclopedia entry. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Have a nice autumn.